Good morning, Dr. Gulube.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes, I'm happy to have you as the principal of the National School of Government. You are part of our inaugural senior fellows at the National School of Government, and we made a commitment that we will have conversations with yourselves as senior fellows of the National School of Government, which helps us start conversations, record some of the important parts of your history and the background and the role in the public service, and that also gives you an opportunity to do a reflection in retrospect of your career in the public servants, so that when we engage with senior managers in the public service and those who are in the executive level, they can have this conversation with you even if you are at home enjoying your retirement using digital platforms. So we humbled that we have agreed to be part of this conversation. We already done one with DG Nosipo Ngaba last year. We were using that already. Unfortunately, DG Lubisi has been able to come and interact himself physically, but we'll also be recording going forward. So thanks for coming. I suppose it will be good if you start by doing your intro, just a bio sketch of yourself, what you did before you joined the public service, as well as when did you join the public service.
No, thank you very much, Principal of our National School of Government. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here and participate in this program. I think this is a very important program, and I'm looking forward towards interacting with you and your colleagues at the National School of Government, but mostly with various officials of our government as they come in and out of public service. Briefly on my background, I'm a medical doctor by training, although my medical studies at the University of Natal were interrupted in 1976 with during the Soweto students' uprisings. A warrant for my arrest was issued, so rather than submit myself to the apartheid police of the day, I decided I would skip the country. So I left through Swaziland, Mozambique, into Angola, where for the first 3 years, from 1976 to 1979, I was participating in various military preparations as part of Umkhonto weSizwe. And interestingly, within those military preparations, I just got interested in communication. So I was the head of what we called at that time Department of Public Information within the camp, at the camp level, reading the news, doing the analysis, and also commenting on various current affairs of the day. So for a short while from Angola, they sent me to Radio Freedom in Lusaka, Zambia, broadcasting from the external services of National Broadcasting Services of Zambia. And from there, then I was sent to New York to work at the ANC office at the United Nations. That was now around about 1979, where I worked as a deputy representative to the ANC with the stalwarts of our movement, such as Johnny McCartney, and later on Neo Mnomzana and the others who followed. By 1986, I'd already been out of school for about 10 years, and the president of the ANC at that time, Oliver Tambo, felt that those of us who were already at medical school or at universities, shall we say, we should be encouraged to go and continue our studies, because all the skills are going to be necessary in a free South Africa. That was 1986, when I went back to school and started my medical studies from the beginning. When I left in 76, I was doing third year out of 6 years. Now, I couldn't go into fourth year at that time because I've been out for 10 years. So I started from scratch After 6 years in New York, I spent 6 years in Atlanta, Georgia, doing medicine, and then after that, 6 years in Tampa, Florida, at the University of South Florida, specializing in general surgery. So by the time I came back, it was 1998. Although I was here for the inauguration of our first democratically elected President Mandela, it was quite moving, I guess, for all of us. From the release of Nelson Mandela from prison to a point where he was inaugurated as our president, we were following very closely. Quite emotional period for all of us. And I had already decided by then that although I had spent 18 years in America, I will come back to South Africa in order to continue to be of service to our people at that point in time. So when I came back, 1988, I was a medical doctor, principal officer, principal medical officer in the Department of General Surgery at one military hospital. From there, I think went into research with the Medical Research Council, and also appointed as National Medical Director of the South African National Blood Service. And that was just before then I came back to public service by being appointed advisor to the Minister of State Security in 2011, and Secretary for Defense towards the end of 2011. So it's hard to say when to start public service. Looks like for all my life I've been in and out of public service. But what I did before I went full-time to public service was being a medical doctor at various levels.
But you could have stayed in America, where a surgeon, you would have made a lot of money, performing plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery, and made a lot of money.
I think what you are saying is true. I wouldn't say that is not true. Because I already had a green card, permanent residence in the United States after being there for 18 years. And when I finished specializing, there was a demand for specialists in different parts of the United States. But still, because maybe it might be because of the way I left the country, but also the way I went through all the systems that have been outside the country. It has always been that commitment, that drive to serve our people, to serve our nation, that drove me to say, rather than staying in America, I might have made some money, but I don't think I would have been satisfied. I would have had that reward of satisfaction of having continued what we started. Because when we left, we were, as you can see, I didn't go straight to medical school when I left the country, because my objective was really to join Umkhonto weSizwe and to contribute towards the liberation of our people. And even when I was still going through my studies and so forth, having diverted from what I thought I would go to military training and come back and be deployed inside, it was another deployment that I still felt that the primary deployment is still that towards serving our people.
Mm. And then you join as a Secretary of Defense, basically accounting officer of one of the biggest departments of state. The experience accumulated over the years, including in surgery itself, had an impact on how you perceived your responsibility as the accounting officer of the department?
It actually did, in more ways than one. First of all, as a medical doctor, you are privileged to interact with patients at different levels, whereby the patient you will expose himself, herself to you internally, externally, physically, emotionally, and otherwise. And as a doctor, it becomes up to you to make sure that you protect that doctor-patient relationship and information and interactions that are shared at that level. And throughout your training as a doctor, ethics becomes very, very important. As they say, we take the Hippocratic Oath, and the Hippocratic Oath says, first, do no harm. Even if you don't know what to do, you are not sure about what to do, you are not sure about the diagnosis, with this person that you are interacting with, the person that you are rendering services to, the first thing that you do no harm, and do whatever you need to do ethically. And even if you don't know, sometimes you come into a situation where a patient is already terminally ill, is dependent on a breathing machine, and all you have to do is to switch off the plug. We were trained that the first question you ask is, if it was your mother, what would you do? Would you want to continue, even if you know that we have now reached an irreversible stage? Do you want to continue with a person into a point of vegetation? Or you would like to say, now we have done everything, we are not going to do any harm, but we leave it to the grace of God, if you are a Christian, or even if to say to the nature of life, for its nature to take its course, but I will do no harm. So that sort of prepares you for public service. And that's one thing that sometimes I would like to share strongly with the people who are joining the public service, that the first thing that when you join the public service, ensure that whatever you do, you maintain your ethics, you maintain your integrity, you maintain your honesty. Be honest in your work, whatever assignment that you have been given, but also be honest and maintain your integrity and deal with whatever you are facing with, even if you don't know what to do, in an ethical manner, that you will say, even when you leave the public service, you leave it with great honor, knowing that during the period when you're in public service, you did what you did to the best of your ability, guided by your conscience and guided by your ethical values.
I was in Singapore 2 years ago at the Civil Service College. So we visited various government departments, including hospitals. I was struck that in the hospitals there is only one thing that is written there, which is the Abatupile principle. It says, treat your patient the same way you'll treat your mother.
Exactly.
And that's what is written throughout. And of course, I was looking for their code of conduct, and they said the code of conduct is treat patients the same way you'll treat your own mother.
That's the basics. That's the basics of ethics, actually, and that's I think the principles that should be promoted in the public service. That when a person comes to you, whatever assistance, you can be an accounting officer, you can be just a manager, you can be a civil servant sitting wherever. When the public comes to you as a servant of government, treat that patient, that person, and treat that request that you are receiving, even if you are receiving through the email, treat it as if it was your mother. What if it was your mother writing this email, asking about this, complaining about that? Would you just take it and shove it to the next manager next door? Or if it is your mother, you will then say, hey, that's my mother. Let me give her a call and find out what she's complaining about.
Now, Secretary, do these principles, in your view, also matter in building institutions? Do you think we'll have different outcomes if those who are in executive positions as senior managers and accounting officers applied the same in how they lead and build the institutions they are responsible to lead?
I think so. I think they will definitely make a lot of difference, and I think you have seen that even in the private sector, there will be people who will tell you that, if you're, I just don't want to mention companies now, whether it's here or international or anywhere, but people you will know that with that company, it got to where it is because of the manner it treated its customers, it treated its clients, and then the way it treated its people. And even within the government itself, if we can adapt some of these principles and some of these ethics and work ethics as well as general conscience ethics that we have, I think we will be able to build stronger institutions. And that will not just come from us who are the accounting officers and officials and civil servants. It will come from the people to whom were rendering services. And even now, I mean, you can go, of course, I'm a medical doctor. Maybe I'll be making examples mostly about the hospitals. Even in the hospitals, people will tell you that, oh, that hospital. Oh, I wanted to mention one hospital, which I thought I can mention now. I hope it doesn't change down the line. Like a Kalafong hospital. People don't hear much about Kalafong, but when you go there, the way the people have been trained to treat people, I hope they maintain that. Anyone who have been to Kalafong, I mean, I'll be happy to hear a counter view to that, as opposed to other public hospitals, which I will not mention by name.
No, there's a story about Steve Biko
Yes.
hospital here in Pretoria. The people say when they rate the customer satisfaction at Steve Biko, the same patient will say, I will not go back to Steve Biko because I was ill-treated when I arrived. So between the security guards who tells them which line to form up to the scanner where they enter, the experience is horrible.
Okay.
And they spend the longest of their time in hospital between
Yes.
the main
Queue,
gate,
from
the
one queue
queues,
to another.
and the reception where they get their card. So they say those people are unprofessional. I wouldn't want to go back there. But once they receive a service from the medical practitioners, they say those guys are professional. I will go back.
Yes. Yes.
So they should.
Yes.
The total experience becomes mixed. So they still go there to queue because they want to see the doctor because
the
they
doctor
think
on the other side.
they know what they are doing.
Yeah.
But where they spend most of their time queuing, they hate that.
Yes.
They hate that
Yeah,
experience.
So you within one system, you have the first element of system, which is a poor system, not properly managed. Then you have a second layer of the system, which is properly committed and dedicated. And that's what we mean when we say the way you treat people makes a difference. And that's what make great institutions differ from not so great institution, is the way that people, it's not a matter of the walls and paintings and the comfort of your chairs that are in the waiting room. It's person-to-person relationship. And that's what public service is all about. Public service is about person-to-person interactions.
But if you are at head office, don't we relegate that and think it's something that must be dealt with by colleagues who are in the front line? You know, doesn't matter for DGs, DDGs, municipal managers, because some of them think, well, I'm not in the front line. The people interact with me, with my service, with my department, through those who deliver the actual service. You know, does it have to matter for accounting officers and executive managers in the public sector?
Yeah. No, I will go in, and I know that as we interact in this session that we have, there are a number of issues that have been running in my mind, and I wanted to present them in a certain manner, but I think it doesn't matter, because now that you are raising it, I will talk about it, and then I can refer back to it if it comes up again. It's an issue of evidence-based scientific approach in the work that we do. And when we talk about evidence-based, simply put, we talk about feedback on the reactions produced by your actions. You take your action. After every action you have taken, there's a reaction, and that reaction becomes like your feedback in what you're doing. Now you are referring to us as accounting officers, DGs and DDGs, that actually we are not there on the front line interacting at the ground level, what we can call a foot soldier. But for a successful public service, you will have to have a top-down command and control where you have a center that has to hold, design, plan, and at the same time monitor the actions and the program of action that is developed. So you do have, you need that top-down command and control in terms of strategic direction. But you also need a bottom-up feedback. A bottom-up feedback is when you hear from your subordinates. If you are an accounting officer, how many times do you go out to call your executive committee, committee, and also go down to the next divisional committees that you have, whatever division, and just ask for a feedback in terms of with the way we are running this department, with the way we are running this institution, or even if it's a division or section of the work, what impact are we making? Are we producing the results, the outcomes that we are looking for? So let this bottom-up feedback and bottom-up voice. So the bottom-up voice becomes very critical if we have to do what we do and have the proper impact that we have. Now, in the public sector, we don't appreciate, we don't engage as much as we should on this bottom-up voice. If anything, we don't want to hear what the subordinate has to say.
Yes, yeah.
And that causes a lot of tension between the supervisors and the subordinates.
Yet the public outrage is felt immediately by that frontline
Yeah, exactly.
guy,
Exactly.
because every day they are complaining.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
every day. People, what we call in the public sector subordinates is really the place where, as they would say, the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
The rubber hits the road not at the accounting officers, senior managers level, SMS's level. The rubber hits the road at the subordinate level, if one is allowed to use that term.
Now, if we may change gear, Secretary, in your career in the public, sector, in general, all embracing or in serving the people, are there defining moments where you had to deal with very complex programs or scenarios and were able to achieve some breakthroughs? Maybe 2 examples, and how will you describe those breakthroughs and what will you attribute them to?
Well, I think in the public service, one of the defining moments one has been exposed to, it was maybe 2013, 14, when there was an eruption in different parts of the country of attacks against foreign nationals. At that time, I was already the co-chair of the security cluster of DGs and what we call justice, crime prevention, and security cluster. The eruptions had occurred in Durban, mostly. I think the ones that occurred here around the areas of Joburg were more like sporadic. I'm not saying by that they were not serious, because people were, as you remember, there must have certain people were banned and set on fire and all those conflicts that came in. But we were able to control that almost immediately. The ones that became life-threatening and more extended were around Durban. And when we got to Durban, because we then called the whole security cluster to go to Durban, and then we developed what we call an integrated plan to fight attacks on foreign nationals. That integrated plan, because before that we were working almost like in silos. The police will come in, and then when things are under control, and then sometimes Home Affairs come and check what's happening, and separately, International Affairs, that is DECO, would also come and see whether there's a need to engage separately with the foreign African embassies that were around. And that time, of course, you had different capitals in Africa complaining about the treatment of foreign nationals in South Africa. But as a cluster, we then developed an integrated plan, which was we formed a collaborative platform, and we designed a multidisciplinary approach, where we said we will have look at the regulatory framework. What's the regulatory framework under which these things was happening? The community mobilization and communications, and we look at the public safety action plans that needs to bring everything under control, and then we look at the multi-stakeholder engagements with the people, government, labor, civil society, academia, and so we had that integrated approach. As soon as we had that, all the departments involved, whether it was social development here, local government, provincial government, national government, we all fell into one integrated plan towards combating attacks on foreign nationals. And that was really a major. When we were working on it, we were not, personally, even as a co-chair, I was not aware that actually we are now making something that will make a breakthrough. But immediately when we started implementing that and following up and monitoring that action plan, it really produced the results. I think that for a while now, I mean, I'm not saying this thing has been, but we were able to contain what everybody felt, that these attacks on foreign nationals is not going to end. It's not going to end. It's always going to be there until all the foreign nationals have been driven out of South Africa. This is not going to end. But through that integrated approach, we were able to make that breakthrough now, whereby even now I can comfortably say, yes, I'm not saying no one can guarantee that attacks will never happen, but this time when it happens, it's not going to happen at the scale that it happened at that time.
I see. Okay. But do you think those principles can be replicated?
Actually, for the JCPS cluster, that's what, since then, that has been the modus operandi, that has been the mode of operation for the JCPS cluster. From there, we replicated it when other issues that were coming in. I think at one stage within the fourth government, the cabinet said, you are not able to control crime. Crime is running out. Where is your integrated crime prevention plan? When we're developing that crime prevention plan, the first people we had to call social development to say, you know what, the source of crime is not because there are not enough police. We don't have crime in South Africa because there are not enough police. We have crime in South Africa because of poverty. Well, one of the reasons. Of course, the police are supposed to be a deterrent, not a solution to the issues of crime. So not a cause. Lack of police does not cause crime. It is other causes, other reasons,
socioeconomic factors,
factors that cause crime. And then they get exacerbated if the crime cannot be controlled because you don't have enough police. So that in itself, that approach now to fight crime, we then started to emphasize mostly community police forums, emphasize more involvement of the social development, bringing in the local government to promote small businesses in the townships, and other ways of bringing in the economic recovery program as part of controlling crime. So that sort of, I would say, especially for the last 3 to 5 years that I've been in public service, I've noticed that transformation of the way the public service does its work. here in South Africa. That transformation is not complete, it's work in progress, but we need to emphasize that the public service needs to be transformed in a manner that it does its work.
Well, then, in your last days, your last year in the public service, then we had an outbreak of the virus.
Yes, and that delayed my exit. I'm supposed to have by then exited public service, and then as I was about to sign off, we had an outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. Somehow, working with DG in the presidency, Dr. Lubisi, we were, when this, I remember when this pandemic broke, let me just say, we followed it when it was breaking in China in November 2019. We said, well, is this another SARS, for instance? You know, is it another avian flu? What is it? But when it became clear and it hit us hard as it moved from China to Italy and then very soon was engaging other states, Minister Mkhize called us. And when Minister Mkhize was calling us to give us an analysis of this pandemic, he was calling the security cluster to say, you know, we will have to watch this and all the clusters, economic cluster, social cluster, security cluster, and all those kind of briefings. But I don't think we were, of course, in the beginning, we were really not appreciating exactly where is this pandemic is going to. As soon as it landed in South Africa, maybe around about the 5th of March or something like that, now it was the president who said, we have a structure here that has helped us before. And this is the net joint structure, the National Joint Operations and Intelligence structure. That structure had been where it really got established as a net joint coordinator of national programs was during the World Cup of 2010. So when we were all planning for the 2010 to make sure that we'll host a successful World Cup, the net joints was the engine. And everybody realized, that time I was not in the public service per se, but I was following from the health sector because I was National Medical Director for the South African National Blood Service. The issue of, in case of major traumatic events, blood will be required, so I was part of the net joints from that, from the health standpoint. We managed the World Cup in such a successful manner, whereby even other countries were coming to South Africa to say, how did you manage, when everybody was saying, first time in Africa, it's going to fail, not going to happen. And, but it happened, and at that time it was among the best World Cup ever, as far as up to 2010. Maybe there have been other best World Cup, but that was the best in 2010. So it's a structure then that we started replicating. When South Africans were in distress in Nigeria, the net joint structure same was called upon. And even when we were talking about the attack, what I referred to, attack on foreign nationals, the net joints was again called into action. So it was the president who said, call that structure. Now we have, that structure has successfully dealt with major incidences that we have faced in the country, even now dealing with the pandemic, call that structure into action. Initially, there was a little bit of healthy, what I can call healthy friction, because you don't want to militarize or securitize a health issue. So the health must always lead. You can't now say the net joints cluster or but the president was very clear to give the direction to that he, look, we are saying use the tools that you have developed in dealing with it. The health department is still the leader, coordinator, custodian of management of COVID-19. But you will have to come in and support. And indeed, the National Command Council and as a superstructure, as I can imagine, but as the cabinet council set up by the war room of the cabinet needed the technical support to it. So the net joints of DGs on COVID-19 became the technical team that really supports the command council, as co-chaired by Dr. Lubisi and myself, as well as the co-chair of the security cluster, which is in this case National Commissioner Store. So we went in and utilized what a methodology that was developed and popularized by Malaysia, called BFR, Big Fast Results methodology. Simply put, you create a platform of collaboration. And that platform collaboration developed first a strategy and a direction, and then once a plan has been developed, goes into roadmap to roadshow to inform everybody about the strategy, develop the interventions, monitors that intervention regularly, and report back on impact that your interventions are making. So that's what the command council structure on COVID-19 methodology that it adopted and utilized. And indeed, many international institutions have commended South Africa for including, I think CNN even talked about how well the pandemic COVID-19 was managed in South Africa with limited resources that we have. Even now, I mean, we are struggling to get the vaccination program going, not because of a lack of will or because of we are not planned, we are not ready, we don't have infrastructure. It's mostly because of the resources. But with the limited resources that we have, I think the vaccination program is running well. And the first wave, we were able to manage and contain it, so including the second wave. I think by the time I left the public service, we were just about getting into, we had already, we were over the second wave, I mean the first wave, just before we went into the second wave. I then left the public service, but we left a plan intact, a methodology intact to deal with this. So I am not afraid of this pandemic anymore. Concerned, yes, but afraid, no, because I know that as a country, we have set up a tool to deal with whatever form of waves that might come our way as far as COVID-19 is concerned.
Now, in that structure, I suppose compacting was important.
Yeah.
So you are the co-chair of the structure. There are colleagues that you are familiar with because you've been working with in the cluster JCPS for years, yeah, in your position as Secretary of Defense. Yeah. Suddenly there are colleagues from other clusters coming to join here, and they see your orientation to have been a security orientation. Now you are dealing with the national health emergency. So you must compact with them so that they feel that this is our structure too. Then you have the command council of the ministers and so on. You must compact there as well, because the information you give to them has to be credible because they must make decisions or at least recommendations to cabinet. And then you must compact with external stakeholders who must trust that that which you recommended to the command council and cabinet is actually credible. Was it of concern to you as a co-chair that you must build these compacts in order for this institution to be effective?
Definitely. Definitely it was a major concern, and it has its ups and downs. But the approach, the methodology and the approach was based on that big fast results,
Operation Pakisa.
Operation Pakisa.
Yeah.
On our Operation Pakisa, whereby Operation Pakisa calls for different pillars, calls for different, they don't call it pillars in the methodology reports themselves, they call them national key results areas, national key results in CRAS. And these national key results areas are driven by different work streams. So within net joints, following on the Operation Pakisa, we set up different work streams. So you had a health work stream, you had economic work stream, social work stream, and that is customs and ports of entry, the work streams. Then you had communications work stream and economic work streams and other work streams. So all of these work streams made everybody feel in charge of his area. So there was no feeling that one area is now interfering with my, so the economic cluster, for instance, in the economic work streams, they had so many issues that they then realized that actually it wouldn't matter who is the chair, who's not the chair, who's leading net joints, or who's net joints, who's not net joints. The question is, now I'm in the economic work stream. My work stream how is my work stream going to deal with this COVID-19? So it's a matter of decentralizing, but decentralizing, balancing the two, whereby they felt that they were in charge. They were then developing the policies. If you look at the hospitality group, for instance, that was struggling, the restaurants, the hotels, the tourism and everything, they were no longer now concerned about who's a co-chair, who's not a co-chair. They were more concerned about what needs to be done. And once they have done their analysis, developed their plans, and had their recommendations, all they had to do is to make sure that their recommendations are good recommendations, first of all, effective recommendations, recommendations that will have impact on the pandemic, and that the recommendations and that they can be acceptable to the Command Council. So then when it gets to the Command Council of Ministers, that's where you would then realize that this is where the major interaction is now taking place. That's where the issues are being debated. That's where everything has to be canvassed. It was a battle of ideas. Or maybe I shouldn't call it a battle. Maybe I shouldn't call it a battle of ideas. I should call it a festival of ideas.
And evidence.
Exactly, evidence-based. Everybody had to prove that whatever recommendation he has is an evidence-based recommendation. And there was no guarantee that any recommendation is going to be approved by the Command Council. These Command Council meetings will last until late at night and continue through various task teams that the President himself, as the chair of the Command Council, will set up to say, okay, we're adjourning this meeting, but this task team, let them continue working up to the early hours of the morning, because I want to make an announcement the following day or the day after, or I want to take this to the provinces, which was another concept that came through this Command Council to say now, not that there was no National Provincial Council or a National Presidential Coordinating Committee before, but it became more active the structures of linking up the national structures and the provincial structures, which were actually brought down to the local government level, to the municipality and local government level, to the district level, as we can put it. So this command council, this Operation Pakisa, it was not just bringing in government, labor, society, civil society, NGOs, academia. It was bringing different levels of government, national, provincial, district, local government, which is something that I think you can see as the whole methodology approach, Operation Pakisa approach is maturing, is being implemented in public service, that bringing in national, provincial, and district is still going to need more work to be done in that regard.
So the idea is to succeed on this idea of big, fast results. You build institutions, so you are clear that you've got these institutions, including their work streams. You then have compacts internally, but also with the stakeholders. Now, we've already defined it. Actually, you say it's a big, fast result, which means you are predetermining even the outcomes.
Yeah.
So the journey begins at the end.
Yeah.
Like you want to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
So you start there and move,
Yeah.
and move backward.
Just on that, not to disturb your thinking.
Yes.
Actually, it is exactly because of that definition of the results that you start with what they call the labs. They refer to as the labs. The labs, according to them, according to this methodology, the labs are supposed to meet for 6 weeks before you do anything to analyze, collect information, analyze it, plan, design, and what you want, and prioritize activities that you want to engage in to achieve the results that you've already defined, the labs.
I see. And what if you don't have sufficient resources to do so?
It's not only not having sufficient resources, sometimes we don't even have sufficient time. And COVID-19 showed us. COVID-19 showed us that when the pandemic is here, it is here. You don't have enough time to design your labs for 6 weeks, just analyzing what to do and not to do, and coming up with plans and interventions. You don't have 6 weeks because the pandemic is here, people are dying now. And also you don't have resources. So it teaches you, these big, fast results teaches you to do the best with what you have, and you are not going to get anything extra. And if anything else, in terms of resources, it says that consolidate the resources that you have. Let them pull them together. Let whatever resources any division, department, or sector of government has, let those resources be channeled towards achieving the common results that you would have said. Don't let me now take the resources that I have and go to a different priority because this is a priority to the Department of Defense. Whatever resources I have should not be prioritizing my goals, mandate as a defense. Whatever priority and resources I have must be prioritized to achieve the goals of fighting the pandemic.
So you'll say that then COVID-19, in a sense, forced us to make a leap, because we have been talking about Operation Pakisa for some time, and maybe we might have complicated what we meant by it, and so the results, differed. And then COVID forced us to make the leap that we were reluctantly trying
Actually,
to make.
I have no doubt in my mind that we started Operation Pakisa, as you remember. It was growing the ocean economy and moving the national health priorities into a national health, our national health insurance. And after that, we in public sector, we just kept quiet about Operation Pakistan. But the lessons learned are still there, consciously being used. And COVID-19 pandemic, when it came in, it forced us to activate the Operation Pakistan. We didn't call it Operation Pakistan COVID-19, but it jump-started all our activities. It jump-started our program, our methodology. I have no doubt in my mind that COVID-19 jump-started our transformation methodology of performance of government through the Command Council into Operation Pakistan. So we can safely say that the Command Council COVID-19 National Command Council was based on our methodology of Operation Pakistan.
Okay. Now, yeah, no, Sekdev, it's actually very illuminating the things you're saying about the fact that COVID-19 that made us, forced us to make a leap and get into doing what we wanted to do. It was Operation Pakistan, and we were dealing with a big issue, a national emergency, and we had a whole of government approach. Now, if you were talking to a group of DDGs and newly appointed executive managers in the public sector, remember you said this was a whole of government, so you're interacting with local government officials, province, and even institutions outside of the state, right? Including in SOEs and so on. Now, say we are talking to them, and we have made this presentation that we have made and say, the challenge now to the current and the next cadre of executive managers in the public sector is to package these lessons learned and replicate them. What are some of the key principles you'll emphasize to them so that we can replicate these and not go back into our default, pre-COVID default position?
Yeah. No, I think they would fall into maybe what I can call 3 areas of work that we will have to properly package it and make it our practicing principles. The first one is what we have already addressed, that for a successful performance of our duties as a public service, there has to be collaborative approach. Whatever we do, we need to do more to break the silos, to approach it as a collaborative approach, and also to share our experiences. And there has to be a performance indicator that can measure each and every department and each and every division how well it is working with other duties, rather than to have the performance indicator, the results that just say this is what this department will do, this is what. There has to be certain indicators that cut across, that will force all of us to work together. I could see, for instance, within the security cluster, the JCPS, Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster, most of the indicators are with the police. So when we are doing the performance indicators and measurements, say, oh no, that's the police. You go and call the police, tell the police to give us the information. And then the intelligence will be saying, no, it's not us. We're not operational police. And the defense will say, no. We are soldiers. We are not policemen.
It's not a national security issue yet.
Yeah, exactly. You see? So the issue of what indicator then can you put out there so that the police, the intelligence, the defense, the justice, criminal courts and everybody can feel like we they can feel forced that to achieve these results, this outcome, we all have to work together. And also, we all have to put our budgets in what needs to be achieved. Because right now, I will make an example. I'm making just this example to just highlight this first point of working together. We talk about our borders being porous, that our borders are porous and they're not effectively defended to stop the illegal migration in and through. And then you say, what are you talking about when I talk about the borders? Are you talking about the ports of entry? Who's at the ports of entry? And then say, no, I'm actually referring to the borderline. Who's at the borderline? Now, when you come up to the borderline, the defense force supposed to patrol. Oh, but there's a fence that has been broken down. The defense force passes along this hole in the fence every day, twice a day. They see the fence is down. It is, people are crossing. As soon as the patrol van passes, they come back and so forth. Who's responsible for the fence is public works. The defense force has no budget. You're not going to get the accounting office and the Department of Defense taking, say, I need the money now, fix that fence now, tomorrow. No, because the budget that the Department of Defense has is not meant for that. It might as well be irregular or unauthorized expenditure. It must come from the public works. And then say, oh no, but now we can't patrol this border. Why? There are no roads. So defense, you have engineers, they can fix the road. Oh, but it's not our responsibility. So I think I'm just making that point, that then your borders are not well defended because the public works is there. The police, they are just waiting. They're allowing you to do that. They don't patrol. They wait to arrest whoever. First, somebody must break the law before the police comes in. As long as no one is brought to them as having broken the law, they're not in. And the defense is up and down the borderline. Know what the problem is. They can't do anything because it's another department. So how do you then bring all of that as an integrated approach towards? So that's point number one. There are other examples, I'm sure, that we can make that will say we'll have better results, we'll have better impact. I think in order to produce better impact, and that's maybe going to the next point, but before I get to that, point number two was that we measure the outcomes, but we don't emphasize on the impact. What impact are we making? We have interventions, but these interventions, we tick the box to say so many meetings of the community police forums were held. We said we're going to have 100 meetings. We have had 100 meetings. We said we're going to have 10 imbizos during this quarter. We have had 10 imbizos, yes. Tick, tick, tick. Yes. So how has been our performance? Good. Bonuses, yes. We have had 10 imbizos. But what impact have we had? So you will only be able to measure the impact once you have had these collaborative platforms that you are putting together. And then the second point wanted to make is that one that we talked about, that you'll have to have vertical as well as horizontal approach. That when you deal with in the public service, as you enter into a public service, as an accounting officer, as a senior management system official, DG, DDG, chief director, in whatever form, you will have to have the command and control in your from top-down approach to centralize your plans, make sure that everybody is singing from the same book, hymn book. But at the same time, you must have the bottom-up voice. You must always get the feedback and structure the systems in such a way that you are able to hear the feedback from those who are on the ground, from those who are what we call subordinates, from those who are interacting at the cold front of our service delivery. That is going to be very, very critical. And if we are going to improve transform the manner in which the public service works today. Most of the tension and the obstacles that develop within the public service comes out of people to people, person to person kind of relationship. And you will find that these officials no longer talk to each other. The DG doesn't talk to the DDG. Hardly the other senior officials are complaining that, oh, up to today, that accounting officer, and you'll be surprised, that accounting officer, that DG has never called me to his office. Since he has been here for 5 years, throughout that 5 years, I have never had a one-on-one with him until he's gone. I'm glad he's gone. It happens. I'm embarrassed to say that, but it's because of the methodologies that have been implanted in us, to say that if you are a boss, nobody must challenge your authority, and this person is challenging my authority, I'm not gonna deal with him. I have no time for him. I'm the DG. I'll do my work. If he's got his own issues, I don't have time for him. I'm just gonna go. Instead of looking at that bottom-up feedback, bottom-up evaluation of our evidence-based, as it were, in terms of our methodologies that we're using. Of course, the third point that I wanted to make in that regard is that one of interaction and integration of all levels of government, the national, the provincial, and the district level. You see, when we achieved our democracy, it was a radical change of government from the apartheid government to the democratic government. And everybody was sort of fixated in that concept that the blacks are not ready to govern. The ANC or whatever party you wanted to talk about is not ready. No party except the Nationalist Party is ready to govern. Anything else outside the Nationalist Party is not ready to govern. So that meant that we took the best of our brains into the national sphere. And all the focus was now focusing at the national government, as if the national government is actually the implementing arm. We were focused at cabinet, focused at the parliament, and focused at the national judiciary. And then, of course, what the next level of priority was the provincial, the premiers and the MECs, in the manner that we manage them, the premiers and the MECs. But hardly any attention or priorities was put to district level. I'm sure you might have heard of those who were deployed to the district level complaining, why am I being deployed to a district level? Why am I not deployed to the provincial or the national? But when you look at how other countries are working, especially when you look at the developed countries, well, maybe we're a developing country, we don't compare to the developed, but at the same time we are countries with different methodologies. We look at all levels, whether developing or developed. You'll find that in the developed countries, district level, what I can call district level governments, are really the main part of the government. Whether sometimes, I spend a lot of time in the United States, so sometimes uses the United States as an example simply because of exposure, you will find that it is the governor of the state who calls the National Guards into action when there's a disaster. By the time the president comes in and says, I have a helicopter to see what these floods have done here. It's 3 days, 4 days later, but the first response
There's action.
is an action
Local.
and is empowered and has got the resources to do that. And the transformation of our national government I would venture to say, have to see resources being taken away from the national, provincial, and being put into the district level for the resources for the district to perform at the level that we want them to perform. As long as we are directing all our all our resources to the national and provincial, we will fail to deliver at the district level where we're supposed to be delivered. That was my third point I wanted to make.
I see. Now, Sekdev, so besides the second point about then the bottom up, so if you combine your both experience in the military as well as in the medical profession, you're saying that in order to mobilize this whole of government approach, even when we are leading the institution, you first must know what resources you have. So if you're a general, you know what resources you have, on the basis of which you make strategic decisions about how we are going to engage in battle. In surgery is the same. If the anesthetic is not there, you are unlikely to perform the surgery on the day because it's a critical resource that you must have to perform your surgery. Are there things you may wish to emphasize for accounting officers in that regard? What type of aptitude or, the attitude actually they must have towards them understanding their resources and the environment? Because when you know what resources you have, it is on those bases that you can deploy them. Because if you have DDGs that you haven't spoken to for 3 years, it could be, it's like, it actually could just be the one who must administer anesthetic. Yeah. So you may just be running open surgery without anesthetic being administered on a patient, or you may actually believe you can engage in in some air defense, system, when in fact your air traffic control, are at home. But it also has to do with people's disposition, right? About how you relate to others, how you account for the resources available to you, and that you see them as a resource, not as people who are waiting for you to retire so that they can ascend into your office.
Yeah, no, definitely. Actually, that's a very important point that you are raising at two different levels. The first one is that you will have to work with your team. It's a teamwork approach. When in a medical area, a surgery area, when you are going to deal with a big surgery, that's going to take 18 hours sometimes, especially when you talk about facial reconstruction, for instance, because somebody has been involved in some kind of traumatic bullet through the face or bashed his head against another vehicle and so forth, needs reconstruction. Person's face is brutally battered. You'd have to bring all your specialists. You are a surgeon, general surgeon, you are in charge of the patient. The specialists, maxillofacial, you bring them in. Ophthalmic, because the eyes are affected. ENT, ear, nose, and throat, because they are affected. Neurosurgery, because the brain is also affected. And then anesthesia has to come in. So you can't say, I'm not going to talk to, I don't like that guy. You know this anesthesiologist, he always thinks he knows better than everyone. I don't like him. Let him do whatever he wants to do. I'm in charge. You have to sit down with him and say, at this stage, we will then wean off here and go to the other side. We will then turn the patient around, and at this stage, keep the patient asleep, deep sleep, medium sleep. Wake the patient up a little bit because I need to make sure that I can see that these nerves are working. If you too much anesthesia, the nerves won't be able to be stimulated to see whether they're still intact or not. So you have to work together as a team. And that's what the public service needs. It needs a teamwork, but understanding that each and every team has got its leader. The leader of the team must, if I've appointed you as the leader of the team, does not mean then that you must work alone. You should still recognize the importance of other members of the team. Don't say that because you're the leader of the team, you're the most important person, you don't have to take into account what other the team leaders have to say. So that's really the first point in that regard that I wanted to make. Then the second point is that point of the resources. The resources and the priorities. So I would really urge the incoming public servant, senior managers into public service there that are coming in to be able to prioritize their programs. Yes, you are going to have 5 programs or more, but not all 5 are equally important. Certain programs are more important than the others, depending on your mandate, on your objectives, and what you want to achieve. We don't do well in government when it comes to prioritization. You can't prioritize everything. Prioritizing everything is not prioritization.
50 priorities.
It's not prioritization. Prioritization simply is exactly that. Certain actions, certain programs are a priority. And then allocate the resources according to the priorities. The fact that you did not perform, and sometimes maybe I'm not in National Treasury, but we follow as an accounting officer what's happening in National Treasury. Sometimes they will come up and say, we gave you so much money last year, you didn't spend it. You gave so much money, for instance, let's say maybe for the housing. We gave you so much money for the housing last year. We did not use it. You gave you so much money this year. Now we're taking that money away because we did not use it. Mm-hmm. So it means that instead of improving the performance of this activity, if it's housing, well, in my case, in the Defense Force, it was what you call special defense account, special SDA. Mm-hmm. Special defense account is an account that the defense runs to acquire its defense systems. Defense systems are acquired over a period of time, mm-hmm. and you have to be able to roll over the money so that if I'm trying to build infantry combat vehicles, it's going to take me 5 years to build infantry combat vehicles. I've allocated 15 billion rands to build infantry combat vehicles. So, and that 15 billion rand over a period of 5 years, it means 3 billion this year, 3 billion next year, 3 billion. And while I'm designing the systems, and when I'll only be able to spend large amounts of this money when I'm now in the factory floor.
I see.
When I start the factory line and so forth, that year, those last 2 years when I'm running the factory line, I will be spending more than 5 billion a year. But while I'm still preparing, I'll be spending 1 billion, 2 billion a year. And then the National Treasury will come and say, the money is sitting there. You didn't spend it last year. Mm. You didn't spend it, but I'm going to spend it on the 4th and 5th year when I'm in the... Say, no, we're taking it. Mm. And they would do the same thing with the housing and all. So the point I'm trying to make is that prioritize. It's a matter of priorities. Mm-hmm. Where have you prioritized? Because now if you're taking the money away from the defense material and equipment, if you're taking the money away from the housing, just because no houses were built this year, or let's say, or no defense equipment was built this year, next year, then on year 3,
when you might have been ready
now you are ready to roll out, then you'll find that you are not able to. So it is a point that I'm making that when you are an accounting officer, where you are a DG, when you are allocated resources, prioritize. to say my priorities, these are, and then allocate your funding according to the priorities that you have established. And then the second part, of course, is to set up the proper procurement systems and the proper internal control systems so that the monies that you have prioritized don't end up leaking, sometimes wasteful expenditure, irregular expenditure, or end up in programs that were actually not the priority of the department.
Now, I mean, these are very intense, very serious, matters of state, So that's your total experience, or there is another, bureaucrat who also could listen to music and read a novel, How do we become what former President Motlanthe says, wholesome individuals? So is there another you where you could go and escape all of this intensity and have coffee and read a book other than medical journals? Yes, people may just be scared now that I'm going into the public service. I may lose myself and my family out of this intense situation.
No, it becomes very important that you have to be a holistic person. You have to be able to branch out of this intense, because let's face it, public service, contrary to what other people might think, is quite an intense and stressful environment. So the most important thing is to be able to get out of work of that work-related environment, able to relax, to break away. We have to have other things to enjoy for breaking away. For instance, in my case, I enjoy outdoors.
I see.
Maybe that's why I end up spending most of time in military, just to go out to be outdoors in natural parks and where there are no signal and you can't talk to anybody except the animals. And
there's no social media.
There's no social media. I enjoy those kind of breakaway. I mean, breakaway in the garden. And I started doing gardening when I was in primary school, actually. I remember doing standard 4, standard 5, 6. After school, going to work. I was in Bethel at that time, going to the white suburbs there to work so that I can get 75 cents a week or something like that to take a maquinya.
Yes.
To buy fat cooks during that time. So I enjoyed gardening. Even when I was in the US, medical student, I used to work in the gardens during the holidays. Just at that time, in America, they were not calling me garden boy.
I see.
They were calling me a tree surgeon.
Oh, I see. A tree surgeon.
A tree surgeon. Okay. Because I was already educated, and we, there you don't work as a lone, you work as a company. So I was working for a black female company, and she made me supervisor simply because I was a medical student.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't know anything about
so servicing people's gardens. Okay.
So I was a tree surgeon.
Yeah.
And actually we made some money because I bought furniture for my student days, those days, from the money I made. But I'm saying all of this to say you need to have something to break away.
Yeah.
As a student, you can go and work in the gardens when it's Christmas. As a civil servant, you can organize yourself so that you can take a short left in South Africa to visit the areas that you enjoy. And I really enjoy listening to jazz music. I've got my Bose speaker there, and I put it in the garden, sit down there, and just enjoy.
Helps you reconnect.
Yeah, exactly, just to unwind. We call it unwind. You really have to find time to unwind. If you enjoy swimming, the beach, or whatever, what do you do to unwind? Don't be so tensed up as to a point whereby you become less effective at work. you will become less effective. If you left Friday tensed up, and you come Monday, you are still tensed up, your productive level is going to go down. You must use Saturday and Sunday to break away.
Okay. No, thanks a lot, SecDev. As they say, you are a SecDev for life. In our case, we are, senior fellow. We take these conversations very seriously. We hoping as a National School of Government that we will assist in this idea of government becoming a learning institution. We don't have sufficient time to interact and break away together and garden and listen to music. Also largely because of the geography of the country. In other capitals, you will find that government employees are clustered in certain communities, so they spend time even in bars, after work and so on, and that's where they are able to actually even debrief. In our case, I was talking to a group of HODs in KwaZulu-Natal, and I challenged them that because most of them live in Pinetown and Durban, half the time when they are at the office in Pietermaritzburg, they are thinking about traffic. Because of the entry traffic, which means most of the senior managers there, they only work half a day. And they complain if their MSCs who want to work until late at night because they say, I still have a long drive to go to Durban. In Mafikeng, they stay there, they drive largely on Fridays, but in Pietermaritzburg, it's something else, which means they have no time to interact other than when they are in an official meeting. So we're hoping that through these conversations, we will be able to bring yourselves as veterans, of public administration into contact, albeit virtually, with the colleagues who are still serving. In fact, maybe even interns and junior officials, so they can be inspired as well to engage because they have a contribution to make.
It's really interesting to talk about that, and that's one thing I ended up having to deal with. I used to enjoy end of the year functions generally, where I would hang out with my subordinates and everybody put up the music and have a beer there and a beer there and dance the whole afternoon and so forth. But now, because of budget cuts, we no longer have end of the year functions. But it's quite an interesting concept. Maybe during the year, we can get your employees to keep on contributing 20 Rand every month so that you can have end of the year functions, what you call team building and everything. And understandably, in public service, no more team buildings, no more end of the year functions, but that social interactions of employees under more relaxed atmosphere, they can go a long way in boosting the morale, boosting the morale of the soldiers, as it were.
You can't win a war with unhappy soldiers.
In the Defense Force, Wednesday afternoon is a sports day. So maybe we should do that bring sports days back for the public service. Like for instance, if you say, it's interesting, I never thought about it. Most of the public servants at the provincial headquarters in Pietermaritzburg, in Gulube, they have their houses in Durban. By nature. So maybe they can organize to say, at least once in a while, they just branch out and have hang out.
Well, I was told at SABC at some point, one thing that brought them together was the SABC choir. I mean, it was illustrious. It sang in state funerals and whatever. This was one
I can sing too, right?
You can sing too. Oh my goodness, we lost out. Okay. No, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Did we leave out any question? Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I think I covered the area I wanted to cover.
No, thanks.